so very wide. Let us build a bridge of music, and let us cross it with a song. Let us span another canyon, let us right another wrong. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way.
Welcome to Bridges Programming. That was Bill Staines. With his permission, we are playing Bridges, and I want to thank you all for listening to us today. We are Susan Comar's not going to be with us today. We have Dennis Carius. Is Dennis with us now?
Oh, yes. Great to be on with you, Jeff.
And then we have, we're talking about today, we always talk about the Human Renewable Energy Measure. And this is Bridges Programming. And this is called Sunday on the Front Stoop. And this is the longest stoop in the world, so people can listen to it anytime they want. And they can join in if they wanted to do it, if they know how to work Skype and Google Hangouts on air. So this is what we're on now. We are hoping that we get a point across about how do we help humanity. That's the whole point of this programming. So I would like you to pay attention to what we're trying to talk about today. This is not a entertaining program. This is a program. It's not a show. I don't like to call it a show because it's not. It's a plea to say that we're doing something to hurting human beings, and we don't want to keep doing that. We don't want to keep on poisoning our air, poisoning our water, our soil, and we want to stop killing people. That's the important thing. So that's why we're here. And the way we do that, and I think it's very important to understand this, is that there's a measurement that's missing. Like 500, according to our calendar that we believe in and we agree upon, we never had a zero measurement in the math in the mathematical system until about 500 or 600 AD, after the death of Christ, theoretically. So that means we never had a real measurement because they couldn't find out a 0 point, a starting point. Only 600 years ago, we first came to the realization as a species, the world was not flat, other than a Pulitzer Prize winner who wrote a book called The Flat Earth, or the Earth is Flat in the Economic World, but it's not, it's round. And we've agreed upon that. We've also figured out just 400 years ago that there's such a thing as gravity and we can measure it, and that was pretty obvious. And I'm saying to you, along with some other people who we work with, that all humanity has a measurement, that they live 80 years of age. It's very finite. And they use 1 million calories of food and 1 million calories of water, or energy units. You can convert that to joules or watts or whatever. And we know how many energy calories it takes to build, or energy units to build a house for shelter, or a place for shelter, a minimal shelter. And that can be measured in physical terms. And that's what's missing in our economic system. And it's very hard to understand, but I'm trying to, it's because we're not used to it. So if you can look up the HREM, the Human Renewable Energy Measure, you may be able to get a better grasp on it. But right now, today, we're going to be talking about the Wizard of Oz. And what the Wizard of Oz has to do with our economic system and our society. Now, Dennis, you actually went online to look about what the Wizard of Oz is. You researched that a little bit, right?
Oh, yes, Jeff. I really like something called Wikipedia. It's like going to get an encyclopedia right online. They do a good job.
Well, can I interject something about Wikipedia?
Oh, I don't want to go off on a tangent. If they did anything to you that was not good, that's just between you and them. I won't get involved with that.
Well, don't you think they are controlled by the economic system as well?
Well, okay, I won't go there. I'm just saying I'm looking up the Wizard of Oz right now on Wikipedia, and it's very interesting.
Okay, well, it has some good stuff. So what does it say about the Wikipedia?
Well, this is a film that was produced in 1939. Isn't that something? This goes back to 1939, and it says that it's a musical fantasy film produced by Metro Goldwyn Mayer, and the most well-known and commercially successful adaptation based on the 1900 novel. Now, that's a novel that goes back to the year 1900, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. And it says the film stars Judy Garland, Terry the dog, billed as Toto, and then it gives a whole lot of names of who was on the film. And it says notable for its use of Technicolor, fantasy storytelling, musical score, and unusual characters. Over the years, it has become one of the best-known films and part of American popular culture.
I actually went to see that movie when I was probably in 1951 or 53, when they first turned it from black and white to color. And that was the new Technicolor put into that movie, and I went to see it with my father. And that was the only, a fond memory I had going into the RKO theater to see that movie. But I just want to give you an idea what it's about. And this is the song. Well, that's the Wizard of Oz song, and this is where we're coming to. I want to come to the point why we're doing this. We hire politicians and think they're wizards, and then we go off to try to get appointments with our senators and our congressmen and our, all these high-profile people. Well, the story with the Wizard of Oz was there was a tornado, an actual act of nature or God, and theoretically, that tornado made Dorothy hit her head, and then she went off to Never Never Land, and she wound up in the house moved to this strange planet, and they called the planet Oz. And when she got there, all she wanted to do was get back to home. I think it was, I forget the name of the Nebraska or something like that, or Oklahoma, or someplace in the Midwest, Kansas. Kansas. I want to go back to Kansas. And when she got in her house, landed in in the land of Oz, she had, just by happenstance, the house landed on one of the Wicked Witches and killed the Wicked Witch of the North or the South. It doesn't matter. Now, the other Wicked Witch, the sister, was really mad at Dorothy, and she wanted to take out Dorothy and her little dog, Toady. What do they call that dog, Dennis? Dennis, you there? Did I lose you? Toady, what's the name? Toto, right. And she said, I'm going to get you and that little dog too. And then they had the Munchkin people, and then She said, well, how do I get back to Kansas? So the Munchkin said, well, you got to go talk to the all-powerful Wizard of Oz. So she goes off to follow the yellow brick road and on her quest to get home. And on her quest to get home, she meets somebody who was looking for a scarecrow who was looking for brains. And then as they continue on, the two of them, and they found a tin man who was looking for a heart. And they go, now the two of them go off and they find a lion who's looking for courage. And the four of them and the little dog go down this trail to find this great, all-powerful wizard. Now, that's what we do when we try to elect somebody. And then once we elect that person or people, we try to get an audience with them to accomplish something we think will be better for us, our personal selves and our families and our country and our town. Like, Dennis, your quest is to get solarize Albany or solarize Troy or solarize the world. That's your quest, right?
Yes, correct.
So you want to get enough people to talk to their politicians so we get away from spending money on war and spending it on solar panels. That would be our quest, right?
Yes.
So we are going to find our wizard and say, stop spending money on wars and put solar panels on, and that'll solve our problems. That's what we're thinking right now. At least that's, some people are thinking that. So we're looking to the same quest that Dorothy was on to find the great all-powerful wizard to get her back to Kansas. And on the other three people she met, or the Tin Man and the who wanted a heart, and the Scarecrow who wanted brains, and the Lion who wanted courage, they all wanted something from this great and all-powerful wizard. Well, aren't we doing the same exact thing by trying to elect people who we think can change the way our physical life is?
Jeff, that's a good question. I think one of the things that's really helping us, have you ever heard of something called peak oil? It means what's over in the Middle East under the surface, that oil is going to peak out. It's going to run, when the oil disappears.
Well, it has already peaked out. It now costs you between 4, depending upon who you speak with, between 4 and 7 times the energy cost to pull that oil out of the ground. It's already peaked out. So now that it's peaked out, now what?
Well, now, unfortunately, people who want to get that oil and then, come over here and then sell it at the gas station, now they want to fracture the ground and get it out. Did you ever hear of hydrofracking?
Yeah, so okay, I'm agreeing with you on all this. So now what do you want to do about it?
I want to get off of the oil and move over to solar power. That sun up there has a lot of energy.
I'm agreeing with you again. I'm going to agree with you again. So how are we going to do that?
Well, that's it. I'm saying one of the best solutions to this might be when the oil peaks out.
It's already peaked out. It's already peaked out. We got that. Now what?
Okay, and I'm glad. I'm in a state, it's called New York State. They say you cannot hydraulically fracture the ground in New York State. They banned hydrofracking.
Okay, so now what? So now,
if you look at all those roofs out there, just think, if you go outside, look at all those roofs out there. Even if it was just half of those roofs that had solar panels on those, it could convert that sun's energy over to electricity. And you can.
So how are we going to get that to happen?
Well, you'd have to reform things if they ever get dysfunctional.
Well, they are dysfunctional. So how are we going to change that?
Well, that's a good point, right?
Do we have to get to the wizard and then to get the wizard here so he could, the all-powerful, almighty wizard, to change the way things are?
Good. Could you try to do that?
Well, I'm asking you, how do you think we should change it to have it better, to stop killing people and stop poisoning our water supply? And by the way, because you're in New York State, doesn't necessarily mean that your water isn't going to be poisoned, because we have an artificial barrier between New York and Pennsylvania and New York and other states that may hydrofrack, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to poison our water table, because man's boundaries are not the same as nature's boundaries. Nature in this planet has no boundaries. If we poison the air in New York State or the water in New York State or not, and other states poison their air and their water, we are going to be affected by it, are we not?
Yes.
So the boundaries that man created are not nature's boundaries. They are man's boundaries, man's rule of law that does not, in fact, change one iota of the natural process of things. God's or nature's law cannot be overruled by man's insanity. If, for instance, if you hurt your arm or your shoulder, you can't legislate the fact that it doesn't hurt. If we start to get older and not being able to function as well, dysfunctional, not because of the way our government runs, but because nature has not damaged us, but allowed us to grow older so we die in some kind of reasonable way. And then younger people come about, they are born, and they fill the shoes. We are, in fact, a piece of renewable energy, such as nature or God intended for us to do. We can't change legislation for that. We can't say you're going to live by law to 200 years of age. We can change the way we measure, but we can't change the physical being. So that's my point, that going to the almighty Wizard of Oz, the Pope has now said this, that we have to do something about it. Now, the Pope is a very high-profile guy, and I don't think it's easy to get an audience with the Pope. It's like what is he going to do about it? He has no ability. Now, let me just go on a little bit more about the wizard, because this is sort of interesting. Do you know the story of the wizard, or should I continue on? You want to tell a little bit about it, or should I go on with it?
Could you go on just a little more?
Yeah, I mean, now here's what happened. You get this guy who wants the scarecrow who wants a brain, and Dorothy who wants to get back to Kansas, and the Tin Man who wants a heart, and the Lion who wants courage, and you got little Toto the dog sort of running around in a circle while they're traveling down the yellow brick road. And then they got the Wicked Witch of the North or South, I forget now which one she came from, and she's trying to kill them all because she wants to control it. And she's just trying to control the way the system works. And she's what I call the one percenters. You know, she's the pirate of the gang, like Bucky would call them, Buckminster Fuller would call them. And they're traveling down this road. They're traveling down this yellow brick road. Oh, by the way, are you online? Are you on Bridges Programming, YouTube Bridges Programming by some chance?
No, not this. No.
If you can try to get on there while I'm explaining this story, I'm just curious to know how it's coming out. But anyway, and that's, people can do that. Anyone listening to this on our station, they can also go right and see it live on YouTube Bridges Programming, and then it's going to be archived. But let me go on about why we're doing this story about the Wizard of Oz that was written many years ago, and many people have been talking about the economy and how unfair it is since Plato's day, since the beginning of civilization. Not the beginning of time, the beginning of civilization. But anyway, you got these four entities: Dorothy looking to get back to Kansas. You got the Scarecrow looking to get a brain. You get the Tin Man looking for a heart, and the Lion looking for courage. And you got the little dog running around in circles. And they finally go knock on this big, huge. They get into the Emerald City, and they're going to go meet the wizard. And the wizard says, "Come back after you got the broom from the Wicked Witch or the whatever." And that means they got to go kill the Wicked Witch. And they don't want to do that, but this wizard says, "You got to do it before I'll give you an audience. Or grant your wishes." So they go off and they go find this witch in this terrible place, theoretically terrible place, like the fires of brimstone, like we believe in hell, I guess. And then by some remote chance, she throws water on this wicked old witch. And by chance, just by happenstance, because she was trying to save her dog the witch was going to burn the dog up. She goes to put out the flame and she hits the witch with water, and hitting the witch with water is the only way to kill her, and she dies. And all of a sudden, they got the Wicked Witch's broomstick of the north or south or whatever, and they bring it back, and now they go to the all-powerful, they go back to the Emerald City, and then when they go back to the Emerald City, they get in to see the wizard, and the wizard's got all kinds of stuff. He's there's this big electronic thing with his green head, and he's a really vicious guy, and lights are flashing, and just like you see in the movies, like wow, 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 and he's yelling at them and he's screaming at them, and they're scared. They've got him scared. And and then all of a sudden, Toto, the little dog, goes down into where the screen is, and there's a curtain there. And Toto grabs the curtain and he pulls aside the curtain. And when he pulls aside the curtain, there's some fellow there manipulating all these controls that manipulates this big screen for the wizard. And he's talking into a microphone, and he's yelling on the microphone. And then he realizes that the dog pulled aside the curtain. So the wizard says to these four individuals, the Scarecrow and Dorothy and the Tin Man and the Lion, "Don't pay any attention to the man behind the curtain." And you can see him talking when he's doing this. And when he says that, they realize that the Wizard of Oz is nothing more than an average person who's just pretending to be a great superstar or a great wizard. And then all of a sudden, he realizes that the jig is up. So he gets out from behind the curtain and he says, "Yeah, I'm just a fraud. I'm a phony." Now, I don't know if you remember this, but this is a very vivid thing because I took my kids to see this many times, and I think it was an interesting thing to reflect on. And he says, "By the way, for you, Mr. Scarecrow, you are very smart, but all you need to prove that you're smart is a degree. And now I hereby declare you very, very smart, and here is your piece of paper that says you are now a PhD." And he came up with some phony name on the PhD. I say, "Please help donate," but that's my statement. But anyway, that's what he came up with. And so now the Scarecrow's got a brain because he's got his PhD, so that makes him smart. Actually, it just gave him a piece of paper. Now, for the person with the heart, he says, "Oh, you really have a heart. You're compassionate, and every time you cry, you rust up, and we have to oil you, so you actually are very compassionate. But all you need is a purple heart, a heart of compassion. So he gives them this clock that goes tick tock in the shape of a heart. And now the Tin Man is very happy because he's got the heart, right? You got that, Mary?
Right. Yes.
Okay. Now you got the courage. The lion needs courage, and then the wizard, or this phony wizard, said, "You have courage all along. All you need is a testimonial for your courage." And he pumps him up like we gave John McCain a testimonial. "You are a great guy. You've been in war and battle. So therefore, I'm going to give you this piece of paper that says you are now a hero." And now the lion feels all kinds of. He feels so great because he's got this testimonial that says he's a hero. So now he's got his courage. And Dorothy wants to get back to Kansas. Well, he couldn't bring her back because it's a physical thing. It's not a mental thing. So he's got to bring her back to Kansas. He said, "Well, the only way to get you back from Kansas is for me to take you there on my balloon. I ballooned in here years ago, and they thought I was a god, and they made me the wizard, and I just sort of took advantage of everybody when I did that because I was like a pirate, and I'd gotten everything given to me, and they built a city for me, the Emerald City. But now you're forcing me to take you on a cataclysmic move in my balloon." So all of a sudden, this goes on, and they hold a parade, and there's a big day where this guy's going to make a debut, where the wizard's going to take Dorothy back to Kansas. And all of a sudden, there's all the townspeople are there to see this great wizard off, and Dorothy to get into the balloon, so they go back to Kansas. And Toto jumps out of the basket, a little dog, and she goes out to get Toto, and the ropes loosen up, and the balloon starts taking off, and Dorothy can't get in the basket again. And then they ask the wizard, "Come down." And she says, "I don't know how to work this thing." And he goes off into the atmosphere, and everybody's very sad because Dorothy can't get back. And then all of a sudden, the good witch of the time, he comes back and says, "By the way, you were there all along. You just didn't know it. All you've got to do is say, 'I want to be back in Kansas,' and click your heel 3 times, and your mind will take you back." Well, that is where we are in our economic system. We know we should have solar panels all over the roofs. We know we should stop killing people. We know that the borders we create with our economic system have no real value for anything but economics. If we pollute in Texas, we're going to overflow into Mexico or vice versa. If we pollute in Canada, we're going to overflow into the United States or vice versa. The boundaries we create have no real boundaries whatsoever according to nature. It's a physical change. And we know that those boundaries are artificial boundaries. All humanity is on this planet, and we can't kill one another. We know it. We can't continue polluting the earth, the water, and the air. And we know we live 80 years of age. Those are things we can't change. And that's what the Wizard of Oz was doing. He was just giving them just words to give them courage, words to give them a heart, and words to give them brains. And that was a PhD and a testimonial, and the badge of courage, or the testimonial. And Dorothy was physical. Couldn't change that physically, but she was already there, but didn't know it. And we can be there as well. The Pope is saying it. Buckminster Fuller said this. People have been talking about helping humanity from the beginning of civilization. And before civilization, humanity worked together. So just the pirates or the 1%ers are the ones that are the wicked witches of the North or the South. And we need to make sure all humanity has a measurement that we know we're all equal. We need to come to a point that every human being in the world knows they'll live a finite amount of time. They should only have to work a small amount of time for our natural resources, because we've all worked on the backs of other human beings, and no human being should have the right to patent something and take advantage of another human being. No human being should be shot for any reason other at all. And natural resources are to be distributed not equally, but so nobody dies. That's the point of the Wizard of Oz today. So we're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. And that's, you see how we brought that together, Dennis? Does that make sense to you?
Oh, yes, but you don't want me to sing Wizard of Oz.
Well, we don't have to sing it, but I want to bring out that what we're talking about. And we're about halfway through our program. And the reason why I brought this Wizard of Oz thing up is a lot of people in conspiracy brings out in the Wizard of Oz different things like the Illuminati. They bring out all kinds of conspiracy theories. But the reality of the Wizard of Oz is that if you look behind it and see it, that we're all looking for that wizard we're trying to get an audience with. We hope the Pope, who's now said some good stuff, but he hasn't come up with a measure. We're hoping that if we vote in the right person, or we vote a woman in instead of a male, or we vote in a black guy instead of a white guy, or we're hoping that if we do something different, that it'll change things. But the point of the Wizard of Oz is nothing's going to change. Most of it is psychological. Getting courage is nothing more than a belief system. Having a heart is a belief system. Having freedom is nothing more than a belief system. When we say we love our freedom, I've heard people say many times, but do we really have freedom? We love our democracy. Well, do we really have democracy? I don't know. I don't think we do. I think we have the ability to speak like we're speaking, but until human beings, I had a long conversation yesterday with a friend of mine who was I met him, he's a piano tuner, and he fixed my piano, he tuned my piano, and we got talking about the Pope and about this topic. And he called me up at 9 o'clock last night, and I read he had a Christmas letter because his wife just passed away and of cancer. And he became very religious, and he became not a Jehovah's Witness, but a Seventh-day Adventist. And he gave me all these brochures for the Seventh-day Adventists, and he gave me this like 9-page small print letter to read about how he felt his Christmas letter about his family and how he feels. Well, mainly he was quoting the Bible. So he called me up and I told him we read the whole thing, Susan and I, and we read it and we spent time doing it, and it was interesting, but he quoted the Bible to me. He didn't give me how he felt. He gave me how he felt. He gave me the Bible's words, and he just quoted the Bible. He wasn't giving me an opinion. And I said, it was a very good piece of work, and I respect what you're doing, but you haven't told me anything different. Because if you don't accept the first, understand that we never had a zero measurement until 500 AD, after the death of Christ. So that was only 1,500 years ago, so you really couldn't measure anything. And the Bible was written by man. And man's words are very subjective, and they're also, how do I put it? They're not just subjective, the semantics get in the way. Like, I can try to explain things, but the semantics of the words get in the way. I can't explain it well enough. And when I try to explain it, it gets lost in different thinking processes to the person who's listening. So if you don't agree with the first words of the Bible and God created the universe, if you don't buy that, if you don't believe in that, then all of the rest of it is nothing more than a well-written book that has some parts that I think are very profound. Unfortunately, there are some parts that I don't believe that all human beings are born evil. I can't buy that. Do you believe that, Dennis? That every human being is born evil?
That they're all born equal?
Evil.
Oh, no, I don't believe that.
Well, a lot of religious people say that you're born into sin. I don't believe that. I can't believe that because I've seen children. And Buckminster Fuller, or Bucky, as he calls himself, he simply says that all children are born with genius. And then we dumb them down as a species. We dumb them right down as a species. And I sort of believe that. Now, a belief system is something that I'm not telling the guy who believes in Jesus or believes in Judaism or Muslims or whatever that they shouldn't believe in it. I'm telling them they should, and just the opposite. Whatever you can do to make this a better world, I think that's a good thing to do. And it's not up to me to tell you you're right or wrong. It's up to you to make your own decision. And I think that whatever a human being does to make this place a better world, I think that's a very good idea. Now, while we're still here, and if you're looking, did you ever get online, Dennis? Were you able to see us online?
Well, right now I am at bridgesprogramming.com.
No, you need to go to YouTube Bridges Programming.
Okay.
YouTube Bridges Programming in the search bar and see what comes up. I'm curious.
Good.
Now, when you go in that, you will see a sign on the screen that says, right now, it's saying, as we speak, human renewable energy measure. Then it says the THEHERM.org. That's a website. Please look at that. Then it says renew the earth. renewtheearth.org. And then it says Bridges Programming, bridgesprogramming.com. And these are the three websites we work with. And we really try to get people to understand the renewable energy measure. And if you can understand that, please pass that on. Don't join anything. Don't give us your social security number, your firstborn. All we're asking for is just move. If you understand what we're talking about, move this concept forward. So all humanity has their basic needs met for a minimal of 1 hour a day without slavery. Then people can make as much as they think they need or want. In most cases, they don't need it, they want it. And if they want to work harder, they go to it, baby. Let the 1%ers make as much as they want, as long as they don't kill another human being. And I think you'd agree with that, Dennis, wouldn't you?
Oh, yes. I mean, I'm not against what they call capitalism, instead of like socialism. I'm not against capitalism, but I think there should be a limit. If millionaires want to become billionaires. But
you don't know how. But you can't say that because you don't know what the dollar's worth. So you can't even say that until we get the 0 point of measurement. You didn't get online yet, did you? By some chance, you didn't.
Yes, you're right. I went to YouTube.com.
No. Just type in the search bar. The search bar. The little thing that says.
YouTube.com. Yes.
No, don't type in that.
And there it is. I got it. So when you say it says that the show just started live.
Right. Do you see it?
Yes, it says live now.
Am I waving to you?
Oh, good. I see Jeff on the stoop.
Am I waving to you? I'm in the studio. Am I waving to you?
There are sometimes where you have to wait 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Say I'm going to wave.
Am I waving now?
Yes, I see you waving. Yes.
Okay, now that's a good sign. That shows that we're out there. That's a good thing. And I can actually see. I don't know if you can see this, but I can see this. I can see that we have, it doesn't show you as a viewer yet, but it shows, normally it shows how many viewers we have watching, which is interesting. Okay, so now that we have that figured out, are we able to see the, can you see the connection between the Wizard of Oz and our economy and what's going on now?
Yes, right.
So you see why I wanted to bring out the Wizard of Oz today.
Yeah, I'm glad you did that. Yeah.
Now, once you have a computer working, you'll be able to watch Zeitgeist moving forward and as many times as you choose, so you can watch it in sections. You'll be able to see Money as Debt. You'll be able to go on to lots of different websites to see. And the reason is to see these things is not so much to say you saw them, but we're always trying to learn and teach one another. And these people who did these websites spent a lot of their time to try to show us what's going on in the world. And I think we have an obligation to try to understand what they're saying. Because if they spent this kind of time for no monetary gain or no gain whatsoever other than trying to help humanity, I think it behooves us as a species to try to help humanity and use other people's thought processes who spent the time to do that. Now, do you agree with that or not?
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah.
It's similar for that, like they have all these people volunteering for solarize whatever, the Earth, or solarize the planet, or solarize Troy or Albany. Everybody devotes their time and they go to meetings. So it's as out of a courtesy, we should at least go to 1 or 2 meetings because people are trying to do something to benefit the society around us. And I think that deserves some kind of an applaud. I would have, if I had my applaud machine now, I'd play it. But people who devote their time, their life, to going to these meetings and to spending all this energy and time, I think that is important. So we need to at least think about what they're trying to do. I noticed yesterday I saw another solar company. I went out for a cup of coffee and I met a guy who does another company with solarizing something. So, and there's a tremendous amount of solar companies out there now, but they're out there to try to make a buck. They're not really out there to try to do any. They're not out there because they're altruistic, but they're out there because they have to make a living, which is interesting, even though we're all alive. So, how would you? Can you give me a correlation between the way things are in our society now and Dorothy and the Tin Man and the Courage and the Lion and the Straw Man? Can you collect that? Did I explain that well enough for you to try to put together a comparison?
Well, see, Jeff, the bad news is Dennis did not actually see The Wizard of Oz, so you do a much better job of, describing just what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, but
yeah, you're doing a very good job.
No, but did you see the comparison I tried to make between the way it is now? Like everybody thinks they're not smart unless they have a PhD or a degree, and people think they're not compassionate because maybe they're killing people. Like I know you don't want to kill them. You don't even believe you're killing them, but most people don't want to kill anybody. But we are killing people all over the world because of our economic system. Now, you don't like the idea when I tell you that, when I say you're going to kill at least 1 or 2 people today, Dennis. You don't even want to hear it, right?
Well,
because
and that's a very good question, Jeff. Really good, because most people would say, well, no, I don't go out there and kill somebody. No. So, I understand what they're saying, but you're right, though. If you're just out there getting that gas and you're putting that gas in there and you're getting a good price on it, if that gas is coming from the Middle East under the, like either Saudi Arabia or Iraq or any of those countries over there, then unfortunately, people over in the Middle East are dying, and it's very sad. I mean, when we say, well, we have nothing to do with that, well, if you had a dysfunctional government and we cannot reform it, then we will allow those companies to go over there to the Middle East and to get that democratically elected leader out of there, like we did in Iran, put in the Shah of Iran, get a good price on oil. Saudi Arabia is number 6 on the list of dictatorships in the whole world. They get most of their weapons from countries like us. We get a good price on oil. So would it surprise you if, let's say on 9/11, out of 19 hijackers, 9/11, 2001, in New York City, out of 19 hijackers, would it surprise you if 15 out of 19 were from Saudi Arabia? Because if you had, I mean, we love freedom. We love freedom.
Well, isn't freedom just a word, though, Dennis?
Freedom? That's a really good question. I think if there's about 200 countries in this world. If I said to you, which one's the most free and which one is the least free, then I think you would notice a difference when you go from one country, that most free one, and you go into that other country, where you have, people are just covered by a dictator. I think you would notice the difference. So yes, I really honestly think there's a difference between those two countries. So I'm just saying that if you go overseas into a country where the democratically elected leader is taken out and then he's replaced by a dictator, those people that live in that country are not happy. So, I mean, if that ever happened on 9/11, it wouldn't surprise me, because they're saying, well, what do we do to, get rid of this dictator to go back to a free country?
Okay, but we're also we're killing people not just over there where the oil is. We're killing people where they have uranium. We are killing people where we need to get the cobalt out in Africa to get our batteries for our Priuses and our computers and I mean, we're killing people all over the world because of our technology, not just oil. How about for the solar panels to get the silicon, to get the aluminum for the frame for the solar panels, the wiring for the copper? I mean, it's not just the oil, it's everything. It's all about the economic system where we could, if everybody worked an hour to get their basic needs met, and we can still get the amount of natural resources out of these, and we share them as best as we can. And there's people who are going to be very ambitious, and they're going to want to work harder, and they're going to be people who want to follow them and get more. And just because they're ambitious, and there are people who just want not to do that. They just want to go along, and they want to play their music and preach the gospel or whatever they want to do. They've got that right too. So no one we can't keep on blaming people. And the reason why we have a dysfunctional government that puts people in is because of a dysfunctional economic system. And it's not just in Saudi Arabia. It's not just where we put in dictators, because we put in dictators all over the world. And that's why we divide the world up into boundaries, like we say Saudi Arabia, or we say the other side of the world. No, we are in one planet. If we have a nuclear bomb drop in one part of the world, it's going to affect lots of other parts of the world. And if we damage our planet, it's going to affect all of us, not just a couple of people. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, Jeff. I mean, here's a good example. When they talk about climate change and global warming, right away, some of these oil companies said there's no such thing as global warming. It's not happening. And then they had to stop saying that because of all of the ice that's melting in the North Pole, the South Pole. The oceans are actually rising. I'm not joking. This is really happening. All that ice and snow that's melting in the North Pole and South Pole, the oceans are rising. Islands are going underwater.
Well, let me ask you a question. But they're a different part of the world. So if their boundaries are there, why is it rising in their world? They're a different country. So why should it affect them? They have a different country than we have. So why is it rising there? I mean, they're not doing anything wrong. So why are we rising their waters?
Well, I hope you're joking about that because the oceans, if you look, just look at our planet, and the oceans are all connected. So if you can't say, well, the Atlantic Ocean is going to rise, but no, not the Pacific. No, it can't rise. You can't do that because.
Well, why can't we? Why can't we? If I'm an elitist, I can make a law that says the ocean's not going to rise anymore. So can I make a law like that says that's not going to happen?
Wow. Now write that down. You can make a law that says that these things cannot happen.
Right. We'll make a law.
Wow, I didn't think you could do that.
Well, they do. They do it all the time. Our Congress says there's no such thing as global warming. Now they're starting to agree to it because every time they made a law and they had some PhD tell them that there's no such thing as global warming, they believed them until all of a sudden the reality hit them that, wow, maybe it is rising around the world. So maybe we have to change our thinking because their laws didn't work. Man's law couldn't supersede nature's law. They can't change the law that says you are going to live 200 years of age. They can't change the law that says you don't need water and food to live. They can't change that law. They can't change natural law or nature's law or God's law. You can't change that. And that's about the human renewable energy measure. As you said, if the 1%ers don't buy it, they can't change it, Dennis. They can't say it can't be because it's nature's law. It's physical. You can't stop the waters from rising. And if it's rising because of climate change, we have to try to figure out why. Now, does that make sense? Why we need this simple measure so we can become a functional economic system, which in turn will give us a functional government?
Well, that's interesting. I read an interesting article in the newspaper that agrees with what you're talking about. Why did we send our troops overseas in World War I and World War II? What they said is way back then, before World War I, this was happening over in Europe, that 99% of countries like Germany and Italy, those countries were being taken over by the upper 1%, the richest, the most powerful. It's actually less than 1%.
But actually, Bucky calls them the pirates. We call them now the 1%ers or the 1.1%. But they are the pirates, and they were running the country. But we know now, and the reason why they can do that is because there has never been a measure. And the pirates don't want us to have that measurement. They want to make sure we don't have a measurement that gives all human beings a renewable measure that says that they have to have their basic needs met. And that's exactly what's happening now. So I'm suggesting that we have this set up to work within the system, that all humanity has their basic needs met. And that's what this whole idea is about. And that's what, believe it or not, that's what the Wizard of Oz was saying. We can do all the words we want, and we can give you courage with a P8, we can give you courage with a testimonial. We can give you a purple heart to show you have a heart, you have compassion. And we can give you a PhD to show you're a smart guy. But that doesn't change the physical parts of things. So it doesn't, and what happened in World War I and World War II, it was all about economics. It had nothing to do with anything based on humanity. They knew there was something wrong, but they couldn't get to where they wanted to go because they didn't have a starting point. And that's our problem, and that's why today we actually have, for the first time in history, a starting point that we say all humanity has to have their basic needs met, no matter where they are in the world. And then you allow your free market to take effect, your true free market. And they can't tell Dennis or me or anybody that we don't need food to live. We don't need water to live. We don't need shelter to live. They can't legislate that. They can't stop the waters from rising if we do have global warming or climate change. They can't change the fact that we have thunderstorms and hurricanes and tornadoes. That's nature's law. They can't stop that with legislation. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, Jeff.
So I can't go back to World War I and World War II. I can just go back to when the kings were first started or the pirates were first started. And if we go back to that particular time, then we can say what's wrong with our economic system. And I guarantee, look, let me ask you a question real quick, because we only have a few minutes left. If you don't know where you are, how are you going to get to where you want to go?
I would need to know where I am first.
Well, how do you know that?
How do I know where I am?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, I can just memory, you know, like where have I been for the last week or the last month?
But if you never knew where you were back then, you wouldn't know where you are now.
Okay.
And if you get lost, if you were dropped somewhere in the middle of some country, and never, you fell out of an airplane, the first thing you would do would try to figure out where you are, wouldn't you? You would ask somebody, you would say, where am I, right?
Right, yes.
Well, that's where we are in the economic system. We don't know where we are, so we can't get to where you want to go. That's why we can't solarize Albany. That's why we can't stop killing people, because we don't know where we are. And once we get to know where we are, we can then first get to where we want to be. But right now, we are totally lost in the wilderness. And we've been lost like that for well over 5,000 years. I'm just amazed at how people can't see that. And they keep on going into these cul-de-sacs of changing elections, looking for the wizard. They're looking for a wizard over and over and over again. And I just think that, to me, is absolutely amazing. I just can't imagine that our human species can't get to the next phase. But and understand that we didn't get to zero measurement until 1,500 years ago about, and we didn't get to knowing the world was round until about 600 years ago, and we didn't even understand. We still don't, gravity, but we at least named it and measured it. We're still trying to figure it out, by the way, according to science. But we at least can name it now and measure it. We don't still understand it, by the way, in case you're interested. I want to thank you very much for listening. We've now talked about this. This is, in fact, something we'd like to bring out again. And thank you all for listening. Dennis, I want to thank you for helping me on this programming. This is Alien Folk Life, a song written for us. Thank you all.
Neighbors out of work because they closed the factory. You try to stretch your paycheck, but it's never quite enough. Oh, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy. Fossil fuel affects our lives like ripples on a lake. Cars and farms and factories and trucks. Supplies go down and prices soar, our futures are at stake. And when it's gone, it won't come back, and we'll be out of luck. Oh, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.
We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees. Even trash converts to biofuels.
Break loose from the stranglehold of oil companies. Renewables can fuel the world.
We're here to spread the news. Oh, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone? Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.